Hello there guys, it's Michael here, and in this video I'm going to be sharing 11 tips to help you learn guitar in 2023. Now if you're a total beginner, this is going to be right up your alley and give you tons of essential knowledge, and if you're an intermediate player or someone who's been playing for a long time but you still just can't quite play like you want to, you're going to find a wealth of knowledge from the tips that I share here. Now guys, to avoid this being a 30-minute video, I'm going to be short, concise, and to the point. If you want to read my expanded responses on each of these tips, then go to the article on my website, which is in the link below. There's tons of extra stuff in there, as well as links to my free beginner guitar course. Now, if you're a total beginner, you are going to find these 11 tips very, very helpful. If you're an intermediate player or someone who's experienced with guitar, but you're still not quite happy with how your playing's going, despite learning for months or even years, maybe even decades, then I know you're going to get a lot out of these tips as well. So stay tuned. And last little point, I'm going to be as short, sharp, and concise as I can be to avoid this being a 30-minute video. If you want to hear my expanded responses, I have linked an article which I've written where I go into great detail on each of these tips. So 11 tips coming at you, let's get into it. Guitar tip number one is to learn guitar from a teacher. Now this might seem like a bit of a cop-out because I'm a teacher and I'm trying to drum up business, but without a doubt the shortest way to go from a total beginner to playing really well is to find an expert who knows what they're doing, who can create a path for you to follow, and can most importantly give you active feedback on your playing. Now the last 2 years, while many people have been locked down, certainly me in my home city of Melbourne, Australia, so many people took up playing guitar and learning online, which is absolutely fantastic to see so many people coming into the hobby. However, the real epidemic here is the fact that there are so many really frustrated self-learners. There's never been a better time to learn guitar online. I know that. There's so much great content out there on YouTube and it's absolutely free, but whoever the person in the video is, they can't look through the screen back at you and tell you what you're doing wrong or what you need to fix. The only person that can do that is a teacher in real life, which is why my number one tip is go and get lessons from a real teacher. Guitar tip number two is to buy good equipment that inspires you to practice and facilitates great playing. Now, a lot of people get in the hobby because their parents bought them a really crappy little guitar because they didn't want to spend much money and have you quit on lessons. And many people who are thinking about getting into guitar fall into the same trap. I don't know if I like it, so I'll just spend a little bit of money, and if I like it, I'll upgrade later. The truth is that every dollar you spend on the wrong instrument now is a dollar less you have to spend on the right instrument later on. Furthermore, when you get a really bad condition guitar, whether it's cheap quality or a secondhand guitar that's been sitting in the garage for 40 years, it doesn't play very well. Guitars, just like cars, need to be serviced, and regular maintenance makes them sound a lot better and makes them a lot easier to play. So if you're just going on the cheap and getting something secondhand, you may not even realize it, but you're buying something which is hard to play, and when it's hard to play, you're not going to have fun, you're not going to feel good, and you're going to think the problem is you, when in fact it may be your instrument. So my recommendation is set a budget and get the best instrument you can. And of course, if you have a guitar teacher, they're going to be very helpful in guiding you through the process of picking a guitar. Guitar tip number three is to have an outcome in mind, to set goals and to work towards them. And this is very important. So many people want to learn how to play guitar, but they don't define what kind of guitar player they want to be. And there are literally thousands of things that you can learn on guitar. And where people get stuck is the fact that they try and learn all 1,000. If you want to be an acoustic guitar player like Ed Sheeran and you set a clearly defined goal, such as I want to be a singer-songwriter guitar player who can strum along to my favorite acoustic songs around the campfire and can maybe even write my own songs, that's going to help your teacher, or even you if you're trying to look up things on YouTube, have a much clearer idea of what you need to learn and most importantly, what you need to avoid. Now, the world of goal setting can be quite woo-woo at times, and we can all be skeptical of positive thinking and things like that, but the reality is if you set goals and you work towards them, it will help you progress much faster and you'll have something to measure yourself by. So if you're not into setting goals, you can basically check out another video or an article on my website about how to do so. Guitar tip number four is to have a regular practice routine as part of your schedule. Now, when we first start playing guitar, we are ultra motivated to practice every day, and there's not a minute goes by where we don't have a guitar in our hand or we're thinking about playing guitar. Now, just like with every other hobby, whether it's going to the gym or starting a new sport or playing a certain video game, our enthusiasm will start to wane over time. It's perfectly natural, that's just how humans are. It's at this point where most people start to drop off. They miss a day because life gets in the way and they don't practice. You know what? I'll do 2 sessions tomorrow. Tomorrow comes and they missed it again, had to pick the kids up from school or had to stay back at work for an hour. And once that hits 3 days in a row, you are out of routine, you're out of practice, and then your guitar playing goes downhill. What you need to do is schedule practice into your daily routine. If you wake up, do 10 minutes of practice before you go on social media. If you get home from work, say hi to the wife and kids, or chill out for 20 minutes, whatever it happens to be, but then schedule in 20 minutes of practice. We don't have to do 3 hours a day if we're just hobby players, but we do need to schedule in regular practice. And when it's part of your schedule, when it becomes part of your routine, then of course it's going to become a habit, and you'll be sort of agitated or grumpy if you don't get to practice. But humans are creatures of habits, and if you can establish a habit of daily practice, that is what is going to lead to consistent long-term success. Guitar tip number 5 is don't overconsume content. Now, there has never been a better time to learn how to play guitar. There is so much information out there online, and most of it is for free. You can literally learn anything about any topic that there is. The problem with this is, as a beginner guitar player or even an intermediate, you don't know the difference between good content and bad content. And even good content, when you learn it at the wrong time, can become overwhelming and frustrating and totally just shut you down if you decide it's too hard for you and you want to quit. Now, this is a tricky one because you can feel like you practiced for 3 hours, but in reality, what you did is watch 3 hours worth of videos, and maybe there was 2.5 hours of watching content and maybe 30 minutes of playing different things in the middle. You learn a topic to a very shallow level, you noodle around for 2 minutes, go, oh yeah, I got that, what's next? And then you move on to the next video, you learn and play for about 2 minutes, oh yeah, what's next? And you repeat that 4 or 5 videos in a row. You have totally forgotten the first video that you watched, and that doesn't make it into your regular routine of practice for that week. So what you're doing is learning things, forgetting them, not putting anything into your long-term memory, and you have nothing to show for the hours and hours that you're putting into guitar playing. So my advice here is basically just narrow it down. Try and work on what you need to for the day, get your practice down, do whatever your teacher tells you to do, and then if you want to treat yourself, like having dessert after the main meal's done, if you want to go and watch a couple of videos, go for it. But make sure you get your main practice down for the day or down for the week before you go and flood yourself with all the information that's out there. Guitar tip number 6 is to realize that this is a long-term game. Realistically, it's going to take at least 3, if not 5 years to start getting really comfortable and really proficient with the instrument. And of course, 10 years or even a lifetime to master it and get to that professional level, assuming that you're consistently putting practice in along the journey. The mistake that so many of us make is that in this age of instant gratification and Facebook and dopamine and all these kind of things, we want to be good at guitar now. But the long-term physiological changes it takes to train your fingers, make them more dexterous, to retain the information and have it come out when you want it, to connect the dots between the music theory, the fretboard, and your technique, it takes a long time to develop. Yes, we can fast track it with optimized learning and better practice habits and the sheer quantity of practice, but what we don't want to do is listen to a CD, listen to our favorite guitar player and hear Angus Young playing this guitar solo or even just chord changes that took him 10 years to get to that point before he recorded it. We're 3 months in and, hey, why don't I sound like Angus Young? Well, you're comparing where you are 3 months in to where Angus Young is 10 years into his guitar playing journey. It's just not a fair comparison. It'd be like going, hey, I've been doing basketball practice for 3 months. Why aren't I good as Michael Jordan in the NBA level? So it really isn't a fair comparison. So what you need to do is basically give yourself plenty of time to learn and to actively keep learning, keep taking lessons, keep learning from experts over a long period of time. If everybody said, I'm going to take 5 years worth of guitar lessons and I'm not going to quit, I'm not going to stop playing guitar unless I've done my 5 years, then every single person that did that would be a fantastic player. So don't give up prematurely, realize that this is going to be a long-term game, and down the track, we've got to plant seeds so we can pick them off the tree 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, a lifetime from now. Guitar tip number 7 is to learn how to practice. So many guitar teachers, videos on YouTube, gurus, they tell you what to practice. Hey, go and do this for half an hour. Do this exercise 20 times in a row, but they don't actually show you how to practice. I always tell my students this tale of 2 guitar players. Each of them practices for 10 minutes a day. Guitar player 1 spends 2 minutes really focused learning it in an optimized way and 8 minutes practicing to improve it. Guitar player number 2 spends 8 minutes learning because he's not really focused, he doesn't know mnemonic devices to accelerate the learning process, and he only has 2 minutes left at the end of the session to try and quickly practice it and run through it a few times. Who's going to be better? Now, guitar player 1 is going to be better because he spent 4 times the amount of time practicing to improve things, so he's going to win out over guitar player number 2 every single time. You need to learn how to practice, and that's beyond the scope of this little tips video here. So if you want more information about it, watch the video, click the card above, and you can go to a more specific video on practice routines and how to get more results from the time you put in. Guitar tip number 8 is to make music with what you learn. And this is where I had a really big downfall in my playing. What most people do is they learn a scale and they simply practice it up and down to try and get faster at it or to pass a test. A lot of the tests I had to do involved playing scales when I was back at high school, and you fall into the trap of playing very mechanically and technically without actually being creative or making music out of anything that you do. If you learn a new chord, try and put it into a song. If you learn a new progression, try and write a song with that progression. The more musical you can make your practice, and again, if you just learn a scale, can you make a couple of melodies with that scale? Can you compose a couple of little licks? The more musical you make your practice, the more that skill will develop. And you don't want to come from an academic path like I did, where everything you did for the first couple of years was to pass an exam, then you go and jam with someone and you've got nothing in the tank because you've never developed those skills. So practice musically, you'll thank me for it later. Guitar tip number 9 is to play with other people as frequently as possible. Now, when you're a total beginner, you probably don't have the courage to go out with people and try and jam, and you're probably going to find it really, really hard to keep up. Don't let this stop you. If you've learned a scale, have your teacher play some chords and you just noodle around over the top and try and practice musically. If you've got a friend that sings, try and work on just one song or even just a verse of a song where you can play some chords and they can sing along over the top of it. Not only does this open up a whole other world of music that you don't get sitting in your bedroom by yourself, it also helps skills like rhythm and timing and musical communication, which are essential later on when you start playing. Guitar tip number 10 is to be creative right away. And this goes back to what I said a couple of tips ago, where I spent the first couple of years of my guitar playing never being creative. All I did was learn things to pass a test. Then when I got to uni and I was doing a Bachelor of Jazz performance where improvisation is a key topic to jazz, I got a very rude awakening. And what I do at Melbourne Guitar Academy with my students now essentially is work on creativity from day one. Now, there are no books about creativity. There's no improvising 101 for guitar, at least that I know of, that's really, really popular, especially not with the mainstream publications. So it's kind of hard to find out what to do. That's why I recommend you do something as simple as get a backing track, learn a scale, and simply play up and down the scale, applying rhythms and trying to create little ideas of 2 or 3 notes. Eventually, as you get more and more comfortable, you will be able to play increasingly better lines, more melodies, more really cool little ideas, and before you know it, your creative juices will start flowing and you'll be much more better at improvising and creating because of it. Guitar tip number 11, our final tip for today, is to become a guitar player. What does this mean? It means you need to identify as a guitar player and you need to adopt the behaviors of guitar players and you need to take the actions that guitar players take. This means listening to guitar-based music. It means going to guitar stores and checking out the new gear. It means looking up guitars on the internet, watching gear reviews, checking out your favorite players, reading guitar magazines, everything that's going to inspire you to become a better guitar player. If you're just doing this as a hobby and you kind of go, oh yeah, I like guitar, but you never practice, you don't really go beyond just coming to your lesson, then you're setting yourself up for failure from the very beginning. Now, you don't need to make guitar the one and only feature of your personality. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you need to become interested in it, because when you become interested, your world will expand. As you know more about guitar playing, then you will get addicted to knowing more about guitar playing. The history will help you out. Getting to know new gear will help you out. Getting to know different teachers and great players will keep on inspiring you to do better. So it is very, very important that you become a guitar player and do the things that guitar players do. Now guys, I was about to wrap up this video, but then I realized I left out one very important tip, and that's the answer to the age-old question, should I start on electric guitar or should I start on acoustic guitar? My answer to this question is to essentially have a listen to all your favorite players, make a list of what kind of guitar they play and what music you like listening to and you want to play, and then buy the guitar which is most suitable. You don't need to start on acoustic and work your way up, and you don't have to go out and spend a lot of money on electric if you want to play acoustic guitar primarily. My recommendation is just reflect upon the kind of guitar which is best going to suit your needs, and then go out and get the best guitar you can within the budget that you have. Anyway guys, that wraps up today's video. If you found it helpful, please like and subscribe, and I would love to hear in the comments below which tip you found most helpful. And of course, if you've got your own guitar tips, please share them with me, as I'd love to help get them out to other beginner guitar players and frustrated intermediate and advanced players throughout the world. Thanks so much guys, and we'll see you in the next video.